Aslam Hanif, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. In this very good opportunity, I would like to share with you about our experience in teaching macroeconomics from Islamic perspective. And this is a very challenging subject because at the moment we don't have any standardized reference. We don't have any standardized objective, and the diversity is there. So that's why one of our main tasks is to produce what we call as the Islamic macroeconomics. However, something needs to be done, and this is what we have done in IPB University. Okay, so let me begin. I would like to explain to you about our semester learning plan, or in Indonesian term we call it RPS. And actually, the team of teaching, the teaching team, is coordinated by Dr. Iqbal Irfani. Please stand up. This is Dr. Iqbal. Please give applause for him. And remember our Sister Marhamah Mutaharo. Okay, and then Sister Ranti Wilyasi. Okay, and the other one, Dr. Esfa Fitri. Okay, she's praying now. So actually, I do not teach this subject, but don't forget, I'm the founder of the study program. I teach this subject. I taught this subject back some years ago. Couple years ago. And since I focus more on micro, so I leave the macro to my other colleagues. But inshallah, soon we are going to try again, to rewrite our macroeconomics from Islamic perspective. So, okay, and this is the what you call the graduate learning outcome. I don't have to read it. You can just go through this one, and inshallah it will also be distributed by paper. And this is the course learning outcome. And what is Islamic macroeconomics? So in our curriculum, it is defined as the course that aims to increase students' understanding of Islamic economics from a macro perspective, which includes various macroeconomic indicators, such as this one, as well as economic policies, both fiscal and monetary, and their impact on the economy. So this is what we are trying to develop through our Islamic macroeconomics. And what we are teaching in this subject, what we teach in this course, as you're already aware that Indonesia adopts averagely 14 weeks of lecture. Some universities even 16, but in IPD 14 for the class week and 2 weeks for midterm and final exam. Midterm exam and final exam. So what we teach here, you can see the expected capabilities that should be, we want our students to have this kind of skills. For example, in the first week, we want them to understand the basic concept of national income in a Sharia perspective. So what we are teaching them here, so we teach about the circular flow and the concept of national income in a Sharia perspective. And the methods that we are using is lectures and discussion. And since the introduction of the 2020 curriculum, so most of the assessment scheme, the most weight for the assessment scheme lies on the project or assignment, student project or assignment. I will explain it to you later on. So this is about the topic that we are teaching every week. The second week is on consumption, saving and investment function, yeah. And also the role of government, yeah, money theory, and also the model that has been discussed briefly in the earlier session by Pak Suherman, yeah, when he talked about the Fahim Khan model, yeah. According to our humble knowledge, yeah, to explain one of the essence in the macroeconomics, yeah, we use this Fahim Khan model, yeah. That's why it is called Islam model. Yeah, this is not from our. This is from Fahim Khan model. Yeah, Islam. What is that? It's similar to Aslam. Yeah. So Prof Aslam, similar to. Yeah, change it. Okay. Yeah, so this is derived from Fahim Khan's model. Because we have to teach something, and of course we see there are many weaknesses, of course, yeah. Just like what I said to you earlier, that we cannot simply change the interest rate with the profit sharing rate, because profit sharing is something which is determined at micro level, yeah. So how to have, or maybe we have to we have to think deeper. Do we really need this kind of policy tools? Yeah? Do we really need this kind of tools actually? Or we can have, or can we have the other way around, or the other model? Yeah? Of course, the answer for this question requires full access to the economic power, yeah, to the policy decision-making process. That's why here in Indonesia, the Islam economists, we try that in the next administration, the Islam economists should take over the economic team in the cabinet. If we can do that, then we can have a new approach on the microeconomics. Because what we do is just, academic exercise, which may not be, practical, which may not be applicable. Yeah. Because I have, in my personal experience, when we have a thought, and then you have the power to implement this one, then you can see the result. I've done it in the zakat road. Yeah, I saw the results. Now I'm trying to do it in the wakaf road with Professor Aditya. Hopefully we can also see the result. For example, the implementation of National Zakat Index as well as National Wakaf Index. That is the macro tools to improve the quality of zakat and wakaf management. So we have a dream in the central banking area, in the Minister of Finance area, maybe one day, depending upon which president that is elected there. No campaign. Yeah? Okay, so this is the models. Yeah, until the 14 weeks. Yeah. So this is the assessment scheme. Yeah. In IPB, the biggest proportion is on the assignment, on the project. Yeah. 50% of it. Yeah. And then this is our challenges. Yeah. Why I'm saying about that, from the political perspective, because we need to strengthen what we call as the Islamic political economic phase. How we can mainstreaming the Islamic economics as our major economic policy. Yeah. This is, a very big question. Yeah. If we can do this, I think Malaysia should have better opportunity with the current government. Yeah. How you can provide the inputs that can be adopted as the policy. This is what we are trying to do also, but in OJK, we have done a research on social function of Islamic banks. And Alhamdulillah, they promised that this will be included in the OJK health level policy. So if you want to know which financial institution, especially the bank, yeah, that is considered as the healthiest bank, there are some indicators, yeah, rentability, and then other criteria. Yeah, so one of the criteria should be the social function implementation. So paying zakat of the bank, yeah, corporate zakat will be considered, yeah, to be a health bank. So a bank cannot be said as a healthy bank unless they pay zakat. That is just an example. And this would expand our macroeconomic lab for Islamic macroeconomics. Just like the decision of the central bank to issue central bank sukuk, a very short-term instrument. This may change the monetary policy. Yeah, that's why this kind of policies are really needed. It will expand the macroeconomic lab for us so that we can further develop theoretical foundation for macroeconomics from Islamic perspective, which is truly based on Quranic and Hadith principle. I think we can do that, yeah, as long as we have an opportunity to do that. But before that opportunity comes to us, at least academic exercise is really needed. Yeah. So this is our humble experience in IPB University. By that, I end my presentation. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Rifat Syatibay, for a very precise presentation. We now move forward to Dr. Muhammad Irwan Arifin. The time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you very much to Dr. Wahyu. So my respected colleagues and friends from Malaysia as well as from Indonesia. So inshallah today I'll be sharing our experience in the teaching of intermediate macroeconomics. So this is simply a continuation from what Dr. Nizam and Dr. Ihsan have presented earlier in the morning. So can I get the slides? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. Last one, is it? Okay. So this is so just a little bit of introduction to the program. So basically, this is our oldest program. One of our oldest programs offered in IIUM. So it is a 4-year program. In total, at the moment, the student requires to complete 133 credit hours. Basically, at the end, when they are in the 3rd or 4th years, they are expected to choose one specialization with one of these 4 packages. And they also have the options to do minor in the Islamic studies. So we have in fiqh and usul fiqh as well as in Quran and Sunnah studies. Basically the intermediate macroeconomic course is expected to be taken during their 2nd year of study. Basically after they have finished taking both principles of microeconomics and principles of macroeconomics. So in our Bachelor of Economics program, we have 2 intermediate macroeconomic courses. We divided it into 2, intermediate macro 1 and intermediate macro 2. Before the students can take intermediate macro 1, they have to basically complete and pass principles of macroeconomics. This is a 1st year course, and it is a common course. The principles of macroeconomics is a common course which is also taken by students from other programs, from accounting, from finance, and from business administration. However, intermediate macro 1 and 2, these are basically designed for Bachelor of Economics students. While they need to complete intermediate macro 1 before they are allowed to take intermediate macro 2. So this is just to share with you the structure that we have. Intermediate macroeconomics, these are also considered to be prerequisites for other more advanced courses, and this is how it is basically located within our study program. As you can see, basically intermediate macro 2 would be required for, intermediate macro 1 is required for econometrics 1 as well as mathematical economics, while intermediate macro 2 econ 2311 is required for 1 core course and 5 elective courses. Now the one highlighted in green is a course which is offered under the Islamic economics package. So as you can see, basically for contemporary economic thought and policy, students are expected to complete basically both intermediate macroeconomics 1 and 2 before they can take this high-level course. And this is basically the course learning outcome. I'm just sharing what are expected from our student. Basically from here, I hope all of you will be able to see why we divided this into two. Basically for the intermediate macro 1, this is basically a comparative analysis where we examine the underlying assumptions and the models under various schools of thought. Basically we start with the classical. Actually we started with the critics on the mercantilist school of thought. And then we move on to the classical model, and then it progresses to the Kinesian school, and then we move on to the monetarists as well as other newer contemporary schools such as new classical, new Kinesians. So for intermediate macro 1, we only consider a closed economy, closed model, while we add the open macroeconomy in the intermediate macro 2. As you can see, we basically emphasize the Islamic perspective in our learning outcomes by putting it in the learning outcomes. So basically students are expected to be able to analyze some of the macroeconomic issues in relation to Islamic perspective. So this is one of the ways, basically, how we want to show our seriousness in incorporating this. Although basically these two courses, intermediate macro 1 and 2, the main focus will be to analyze the underlying assumptions, the model analysis, the building blocks of to determine the equilibrium price and output. But we also want to show that students should also be able to somehow comment or analyze these issues, common macroeconomic issues, unemployment, inflation, economic growth, from the Islamic perspective. Right. So this is our main course textbook, which is used for both courses. This one has been chosen since I can't remember for such a long time. This has been our main reference for the intermediate macroeconomics course. A major reason why the book by Richard Freud was chosen, because Freud basically used a comparative approach. It is a bit challenging to find a macroeconomic textbook that basically analyze this equilibrium price and output using under different framework. So Freud did nicely, started from the classical, and then he divided, he started with the real sector followed by the financial monetary sector, and he did the same for various schools of thought. And that's basically the main criteria why this book has been chosen, and until now it is still the main reference for our intermediate microeconomics at the intermediate level. Okay. So next, basically, I'll okay. So I'm sorry, this might be a bit too small for everyone, but this is just to share the main topic of what we cover under Intermediate Macro 1. So like I mentioned earlier, basically we started with the standard introduction to macroeconomics, and then we move on to the classical school of thought. This is following exactly the structure presented by Freud. So he analyzed the real sector. I mean, from the labor market, he moved on to the money market later on, and then finally doing determining the equilibrium in all these markets all together, in the labor market, in the money market. So followed by the Keynesian, and then we move on to the monetaries and other schools of thought, the newer ones later on. So this will be the content for Intermediate Macro 1. And this is the content for Intermediate Macro 2, where now we started to basically look at the models to explain the macro components in more detail, as well as we include basically the open macroeconomic sector towards the end, right? Okay, so this is just to share a little bit of the experience among the things that basically I have done in teaching intermediate macroeconomics. So far, so Dr. Irfan is not alone. Basically, I haven't taught intermediate macro 2, but so far I have the experience of teaching intermediate macro 1. So this is I'm sharing, with the focusing on the first part of the intermediate macroeconomics. So basically at the introduction level, what we can do is that we can also motivate the students by sharing real macroeconomic data from OIC countries. And also we have to bear in mind when we do this, we should also make sure that the data should be really representative of the Muslim countries, our different levels of development. In order to motivate the students to expose them, because the data in the textbook will basically be from United States. They will be comparing the OECD countries, while as an alternative, it is important to highlight this to the students to give them an early exposure. And then, of course, this is also, I think, what Dr. Nizam and Dr. Naha have also highlighted when discussing GDP, for instance, a major macroeconomic variable. We can simply also mention of the how in Islamic economics it should not be limited to material output only, like what Pak Herman mentioned earlier as well. The way we measure it should not be limited to this material only, and we can easily refer to the concept of falah to be something. And also other alternatives which have been done by other countries. Others, for example, the gross happiness by Bhutan, for instance. So we are not alone. There have been other attempts as well to basically highlight the weakness of GDP. So this is something that also we can do in order to make the students to be aware of the Islamic perspective. Next one. Under the classical macroeconomics, basically we're discussing the model assumptions because the classical are known to champion the free, the flexibility of the market to correct itself due to the strong assumptions on the full information. And this is also something that we can easily incorporate the importance of providing full information to participants in any contract by invoking the injunctions from many injunctions from the Quran and Sunnah, the removal of gharar, ambiguity, and the specific example of prohibition from stopping the riders from reaching the market, so that they would know what's the actual price in the market. So this could also be done to show the similarities. Okay. And the next one, I think this is also what has been also highlighted by many since morning. Again, this is also a major problem in macroeconomics. Is always when we have to basically look at the prominent role of interest rate. So we have to go back further to the building blocks. So all these basically can be discussed when we look at the money demand. Now, under the classical school of thought, basically in the intermediate macroeconomics, there will be less severe problem due to the how the classical macroeconomists view money demand. The assumption that they impose on money demand by using the quantitative theory of money, which more or less they assume to be constant, and it doesn't really fluctuate that much. And basically, the money demand would depend truly on transaction and precautionary demand for money. So this would be something that would make it, perhaps closer to Islamic macroeconomics, but. When talking about the determination of the interest rate, can I get to the okay. So this one, like I mentioned earlier, since it is more or less free from speculative demand, so we can somehow mention to the student that this is it reflects many of the fundamentals of what the role of money from the Islamic economics point of view, because it is somehow limited. And move on to the next one. Okay. However, we cannot run away because interest rate still plays a prominent role to basically equilibrate the money market. So that's why, as an alternative, basically. Earlier on, I remember Pak Herman showed the share of Sahibul Mal and Mudarib, but this one, rather than dividing it into two parts, paper by our old previous Professor Muhammad bin Yusuf, he divided it into three components. The share, in order to basically as an alternative, he proposed that we use this profit rate, which is defined as the percentage of the nominal profit per rental value of capital. Okay, so the potential return to capital multiplied by the stock of capital, and this would basically define the profit rate, which should be divided into three components. So they refer to the deposit, the return to the depositors, under Mudarabah, and then the return to the bank, and then the return to the entrepreneur. So the third party that is proposed here would be the return to the bank as the intermediate financial unit. Right? Okay. Moving on to the Kinesian, again, here maybe one thing that we, I highlight to the students is that Kinesian macroeconomics, they always champion the good impact of fiscal stabilization policy, which require an active government participation in the market. So this can be easily linked to Maqasidul Sharia by invoking the concept of maslahah, where government basically should consider the common welfare, the common interest of everyone, to justify their intervention in the market. Also, the way Freud, presented it in the book, he portrayed the Great Depression, the long unemployment, severe, challenges faced by the people, and this somehow justified the government, active government intervention, which would be somehow, we can easily link it to the concept of maslahah. 1 minute more, okay. So, like I mentioned earlier, Kinesian will be a bit more troublesome because their money demand is heavily influenced by the speculative demand. Speculative demand basically depends on interest rate. So the only suggestion, the only way that I can do with my student is simply to tell them that, in Islamic economics, since riba, interest is prohibited, so we have to somehow replace interest rate. So rather than analyzing the LM curve, using the interest rate, so now we simply replace it with a profit rate. Although this will still may be subjective, but this is the only thing that I could do at the moment. I also would tell the students that, okay, under the Islamic economics, basically the demand for money would totally be interest insensitive, and that's why basically the LM curve would be vertical, and this would be pretty much similar to the classical money LM curve. So the classical LM curve would be somehow much more harmonious, parallel with the Islamic macroeconomics framework. So instead of using in the Y and interest rate plane, so the LM curve under the Islamic macroeconomics will be better analyzed using the Y and the profit rate framework. The monetaries, maybe we can just go back to the previous slide. Okay. Again, the monetaries, they are known to divide the demand for money into pretty much more components. So I somehow can highlight that the second two components, the rate of return on equities as well as the rate of return on this durable item, will be pretty much acceptable in Islam. But somehow the interest rate on bond, so as an alternative, Alhamdulillah, at least now we have sukuk, so I can just simply propose to them replace that return, the first component, which is problematic. The others are simply pretty much fine in under Islamic macroeconomic framework, to replace that with nominal return on sukuk. And the next one, so this is with regard to assessment. So project paper will be pretty much suitable because now students have more flexibility to explore and analyze issues from Islamic perspective. And these are the issues. I think this is pretty much echo what many others, as well as Dr. Irfan, Dr. Raditya have all mentioned. We don't have a concrete, proper ISLM under the Islamic macroeconomic to be offered as a strong alternative. The issue is that perhaps these changes, even the ones that I suggested to my students, they may perceive it as simply superficial because they did not come from a proper, solid model assumptions like the conventional ISLM, which started from the beginning, the equilibrium in the labor market, the money demand, the money supply, and etc. And additionally, I think we don't have data, so that's make the problem to be more problematic. And I think that's all from me. I hand it back to the moderator, Dr. Wayu. Thank you,
Dr. Muhammad Irfan. So, Irwan, sorry, just Irwan. Right. So now we have another perspective from IUM as well, but through online mode. Mas Adi, can you please put Dr. Muhammad Nahar Arshad on our screen? So. Yeah, Dr. Muhammad Nahar, are you there? Yeah, let's check the speaker. Let us click it down first. Oh, sorry.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi. Okay, Dr.
I will share my screen.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you have 15 minutes, please.
Alright, I hope everyone can see the screen. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Allahumma shalli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad, amma ba'd. Thank you, Dr. Wahyu, as the chairman for this session. Respected panelist speakers for this evening. Alhamdulillah, I think speakers line up for the third session they have deep roots from IIM, and also my colleagues from IIM in Bogor. I don't know why I'm not there. And Dr. Irfan and everyone from Indonesia. Salam to all of you. And the topic that I will present today is on teaching labor economics with Islamic perspective. When I see the advertisement about this important workshop, I was not, it has been very long, I do not teach macroeconomics. So I told myself I cannot miss joining the workshop. I need to think of something so that I can be part of this important group of people. So then, luckily I'm teaching labor economics, and this course, labor economics, we offer this course at the undergraduate level and also at the master's level. For the undergraduate level, actually it is known as this human resource development. We plan to change the name to reflect the contents better by calling it labor theory and policy. That's in the process. But the difference between undergraduate and postgraduate level for this labor economics is here we are focusing more on the concepts and theory. Right? And then this is a department course, part of an elective course. Right? It is an elective course. So I really get a good number of students who are joining my class because they are interested to know more about the subject. And we have these two courses as the prerequisite for this joining this course, because students can take the course. So the course objective, right? Before that, the book that I used to teach this course is a book written by Smith and Modern Labor Economics, Theory and Public Policy. This textbook basically is very much neoclassical approach. And when we say labor economics, remember that many universities, I believe, in the world, especially from the States University, we are taking this labor perspective from capitalist point of view. And the discussion from socialist perspective, for example, Karl Marx, when he talked about labor theory of value, that's very little or most of the time being neglected altogether. And I foresee there are some values for instructors to also consider that component from this socialist perspective to bring some dimension to the discussion of labor economics. Right? And definitely in terms of the objective of the course, the challenge of teaching this course, right? Labor economics, you can divide, there are three parts basically in terms of the main components. And the first one is to understand the concepts in labor economics. Concepts such as minimum wage, living wage, wage inequality, right? So those are the concepts. Then there is another part, the theory underlying the concepts. The theory about minimum wage, theories underlying income inequality. And so that's another component. And then the third component in teaching this course is the empirical part. Studies done in many areas, right? to find evidence to support the theories, to come up with principles. That's another part. And I would add the fourth part. The integration part is the call of duty that I'm facing when I'm teaching at IUM. How to integrate Islamic perspective when teaching labor economics. Because the three earlier components would already make you preoccupied to give enough training or to achieve the learning objectives to the students. Right? Nonetheless, it's a responsibility that we need to fulfill. Therefore, the following are the assessment that I provide to my students, 40% for the final exam, and then 20% quizzes. These quizzes, they are individual, but for the group, require students to have to learn some other soft skills, leadership, discussion, group management and so on. And at the same time, they will explore literature and also technical writing, data management, reporting, and technical writing, as well as presentation. That's also will be covered in the course. Now, labor economics, you can divide it into two parts, and this is where my focus today, on the macro So if in the future, CRE or Bogor or whatever institution in Indonesia want to organize teaching in micro, I reserve my part already. Micro, that one I will not be talking to you. So I'm talking about the macro side of labor economics. The main discussion under labor, the macro aspect of labor economics, among others, discussion about human capital investment. Right? When you listen to our speakers earlier talking about macroeconomics, human capital investment is not that. But that's where pool of workers, pool of talents would get their exposure to evaluation skills. And then another important component is a discussion about unemployment. Yes, under macroeconomics, unemployment is a problem, but people who face the unemployment are workers, and the tragedy, the burden of unemployment are borne by these people. So that's the human aspect that we try to understand when we teach this course. And also there are aspects like discrimination at the workplace, such as gender discrimination, ethnic discrimination, sometimes geographical discrimination can also exist. Income inequality. In macroeconomics, we talk about GDP, national income, but the component of the national income that goes to the workers, that's very limited, and that's where we try to also understand that. Alright, I go very quickly now. These are my approach in teaching the course. Number one, when we say how to incorporate Islamic economics or Islamic perspective into the course, I think this is the easiest approach. Right? When we try to bring Islamic values, for example, asking students to imagine if they are the policy makers, how would they consider the Islamic approach to address the issue of unemployment, to address the issue of poverty, right? As employer, we can also play a role for students to look from that perspective. I think that's quite easy. More challenging is to look at the real world problem and to use some case study, and this may also related to the next point. Right? Usually, for point 2 and 3 here, I would ask my students to pick a topic for their assignment based on certain country. For example, discussion about slavery workers, right? Or discussion about child labor, right, from Islamic perspective, or discussion about female workers. Sometimes can be very sensitive to certain culture. And what about the Islamic perspective? So that's also can be part of assignment topic, or a quick discussion in the classroom. Alright, I think another big challenge is, I take to this one, to bring in the Quranic or Hadith perspective. Because if you want to interpret Quran and Hadith, yeah, you can do the surface part if you have some basic knowledge. Nonetheless, the issue sometimes can be cultural sensitive. The whole component is there. For example, the issue of female who want to participate in the job market may not be a big issue in Malaysia or in Indonesia, but can be quite sensitive issue in Afghanistan, for example. How they interpret Quran Hadith so that they have that understanding. Okay? So that's some issue that we can also highlight to the students. Alright, those will come to this slide actually, so I can skip over. This, when we say problems or what's the Islamic component that we can throw into the discussion, I think the religious component, most of the religious component, if you look at the literature written on Islamic perspective related to labor economics, they will talk about values as workers, values as employers. Awil Amin, for example, the importance of trustworthiness, amanah to the workers and so on. That's fine. right? But I think more things that we need to address, and also very lacking in terms of research, is to address the systemic issue in the labor market that is a systemic issue in the labor market with Islamic perspective. For example, we talk about modes of distribution in Islamic economy. How do we address the issue of need fulfillment? Among Islamic economies, there are some suggestions to use minimum wage approach, but minimum wage is a double-edged sword in the economy. How you weigh the pro and cons of minimum wage? That's systemic. If you introduce minimum wage into the free market of labor, then that can create some deadweight loss in the job market. The issue of inequality, and this is a very important issue in Malaysia. I think also the same in Indonesia. We read in Al-Quran, كَيْ لَا يَكُونَ دُولَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنْكُمْ in Surah Al-Hashar verse 97, saying that wealth should not concentrate or circulate among the rich few only. But what we do as a policymaker or in theory to address that issue, right? That's up to human creativity. You can say in the class, zakat can be one way, but zakat is not just the only way. So the issue of union, right? The issue of international labor movement, foreign labor, definitely there are many ethical considerations in this context, employment, human capital. So I think I just want to show there are so many things to discuss in labor economics from Islamic perspective or with Islamic perspective.
You have 1 minute left. Sorry.
Yeah, this is my, I think, the last slide. Now, what to consider? Issues and challenges. Right? These are the challenges I'm facing. Number one, as I mentioned, the diversity of the issues. Instructors need to keep in touch with the issues, and at the same time to ensure that students also can follow. You don't want you talk and your students don't even know what's going on in the world because they're just busy with their social media, right? And then some issues can be cultural sensitive, and also politically also can be sensitive, and how to make students to look at the issue from a very objective perspective, and at the same time to appreciate the Islamic approach on the issue. Limited sources, especially in terms of the literature that's solid, talking about technical analysis, and the ability of the instructors themselves, right, to be confident to bring in the Islamic perspective. I think this is quite common. We talk about human resource, right? How to bring, if we talk about we want to bring in Quran and Hadith into labor economics, are you able to do that? That's the question to the instructor, reference. And also sometimes, as I mentioned, interpreting Quran and Hadith into modern context. When COVID-19 happened, then lockdown, people stranded at home, a lot of reinterpretation of Quran and Hadith about Salat Jamaat, working and so on. So there are, just to give some perspective on this. I think basically my last word, definitely I enjoy teaching labor economics because to bring the Islamic perspective is not a dry issue. Nonetheless, the challenge is, number one, to keep students enough knowledge on the required concepts, theories, and empirical ability to handle the course. And then this Islamic concept at the moment, at least in my case, is just the cherry on the cake. It's beautiful, but we need to make it part of the big cake. The entire ingredient should be based on that Islamic. So far, it's just the cherry on top. Wallahu a'lam. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Dr. Nahar, for a very enlightened presentation. Now we are moving forward to Dr. Tika Rudina to share the experience of University of Indonesia. Please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'du. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of all of respected speakers, colleagues and gurus, Prof. Aslam, Prof. Nurman. This is a very honorable opportunity for me to be invited in this beautiful convention center. This is my first time coming to this center, even though it's quite challenging. So now I feel the pain of my colleague from Bogor going to Jakarta for a meeting. Now, I feel that. So it takes like 2 hours for me to go there to IPB, and it was raining as well, but it was a nice experience. Okay, so since 2 of the speakers give a disclaimer before, so I would like to follow as well. So I have to make a disclaimer as well that I haven't taught these subjects for several years back. So I think in the earlier year I teach Islamic macroeconomics, but since we are new staffer coming and they are more knowledgeable, such like Brother Wahyu here. And then, unlike me, I have a finance background actually in IIUM, so I'm no longer teaching these subjects, but as the director of the program, I would like to give you a macro perspective as well on this teaching of macroeconomics by seeing the bigger picture on our curriculum map and stuff, rather than just focusing on the content of the macroeconomics. So, okay, this is a mandatory slide from our faculty, since we just received our 2 accreditations, and to appreciate our pain and effort and tears and all. So I need to announce to all of my colleagues that we just received our 2 accreditations, and we hope to get another one to get triple crown. Okay, you need to give the picture and give to our dean. So and say that I already mentioned this to public. Okay, so this is our vision and our missions of our program. Since we are under the Department of Economics, so unlike IPB, which has its own Department of Islamic Economics, or maybe Sister Kori at WICA, also very specific, we are under Department of Economics, so we follow the visions, and some of the missions are adjusted with our missions of our department. So the missions here, we have 3 missions. The first one is the objective of our program, which is organizing quality undergraduate Islamic economic studies with the development of Islamic economics in the world. And the second, the rest two are saying on the competence of our graduates. So the outcome of our graduates. So we hope to produce the graduates who are competitive in mastering conventional economics and Islamic economics theory, empirical analysis, and as well as communication skills. So this will give you a picture of our curriculum. So we have conventional economics, we have Islamic economics theory, we have empirical analysis, and also communication skills and all. Okay, so all right. Maybe I just this is a glance. I hope you can see here. So we, prior to Islamic microeconomics, our students have to do several prerequisites as well. The first one is we introduce the economics in the first semester, and we continue to have an introduction to economics in the second semester. And in the third semester, we have this one is microeconomics 1, along with fiqh subjects. So the yellow one is actually our Islamic subject. Philosophy, we have fiqh muamalah. And after that, in the fourth semester, now comes microeconomics 1. So before they received or they have to do Islamic macroeconomics, first they have to sit in Macroeconomics 1. And then this one is Islamic Microeconomics, along with History of Civilization and Islamic Economic Thought. So I see in YouTube our professors talk earlier. Ibn Khaldun that Prof. Norma mentioned before are really emphasized on this subject. And after that, okay, so in our 5th semester, you can see all the subjects specialized on Islamic economics are there, which is Islamic Macroeconomics, Islamic Financial Economics, Economics of Islamic Public and Finance, and also Islamic Economic Development. Okay, along with the introduction to data science, research method, and Indonesian economy. So if you can see here, this is a more advanced subjects on Islamic economics. And on the 6th and 7th semester, since now we are having an era of Merdeka curriculum, so they are free to choose other elective courses, or they can choose another activity such as internship, doing village community engagement and stuff. Or maybe they want to also take several subjects from outside, so perhaps IIUM can provide some subjects as well. I mean, they can take, or doing a, what we say, study overseas, yeah. Mobility, this is part of promotion, yeah. So maybe this is a good opportunity also for our students to take opportunity to experience learning from other university overseas. And then the 8th semester, they just need to do final work, right? Thesis or internship research, but this is equal to thesis. So our graduates are required to do a thesis before they graduate. Okay, now they can choose elective subjects, which is already, previously it was mandatory subjects, now it's becoming elective, such as economic zakat and also economics of wakaf, Islamic economic system, halal industry economics, Islamic microfinance, Islamic monetary economy, Islamic banking economics, and also Islamic economic behavior. So this is subjects that they can choose for elective courses. Okay, now this is the syllabus of Islamic macroeconomics that we have. So the approach that we have here is, when we talk about the scope, we try to make it as systematic as possible, as comprehensive as possible. We talk about Islamic macroeconomics concept and also indicator. We talk about the demand sector, for example, the goods and services, the financial sector, the supply sector, for example, production, labor, and also the equilibrium of the demand and also supply, and the government policy, which is a fiscal and monetary policy. And about the learning process, we try to discuss on contemporary issues, policy, and also the development related to the Islamic macroeconomics practice, especially in Indonesia. While it is very challenging because to find the practice and it is applicable, it is very challenges even globally or locally. But we're trying to just because before they received Macroeconomics 1, so now we try to compare, but rather than that, giving strategies how to incorporate Islamic value on the practice of macroprudential practice right now. And then the third one is the critical review from Islamic macroeconomics articles. So we are very, I think this is a challenge also for every university because we are lacking in references. So new articles coming from news scholars are very important, and in order for us to update the conditions, I think it's very good for the students to know. So we have a critical review issue, usually discuss it every meetings, and at the end of the semester they try also to make to choose a paper and do a critical review on that. That is as an assignment. The first week, the first meeting, we tried to discuss the concept of Islamic macroeconomics by asking why we need Islamic macroeconomics in the very first place. Because we know that in general, the objective of macroeconomics and Islamic macroeconomics is almost similar. You know, we all want to have a general welfare for all. We want to reduce the poverty. We want to, reduce the number of unemployment. So almost similar. But what is the distinguish of Islamic macroeconomics from conventional macroeconomics and from microeconomics as well? So this is something that they need to understand in the very first meeting. So we try to also introduce to them objectives of Maqasid al-Sharia. Before that, we have the philosophy, so the class of philosophy and worldview, which they learn about Maqasid al-Sharia. Now, how it is to be implemented in the real world instead of just a concept. And we try to see back on what happened during Islamic history. So it's what is happening on Islamic macroeconomy during Islamic history before. The second meetings, we talk about the basic concept and indicators of Islamic macroeconomics. So basically, Kinesian, our national income approach. Yeah, this is all the indicator that we have. But after that, then we will discuss it separately. So we have another specific session on consumption, specific session on investment, on government, and also on international trade. For example, on consumption, we talk about aggregate consumption, axioms from Islamic worldview, and what is the consumption function from Islamic perspective. That's why some papers are needed to give us, the knowledge for them, the effort of the scholars to see consumption from the Islamic perspective. And then also for investment, for example, we try to see production and investment, profit sharing system, in Islamic investment aggregations. This is a Fahim Khan work, equations coming there, how to see from Islamic perspective, to see investment with zakat and also wakaf there. And next about the government, because it's quite long, so we take it for 2 meetings. Yeah, we are trying to give them understanding what is the function of government in Islamic perspective, what is the policy instruments, what is what we call as justice and in public policy, what is the impact of expenditure, impact of taxes and zakat, the surplus and the budget deficit, and how it is consistent with the Maqasid al-Sharia as a goal. And the 7th meetings, we talk about international trade, trade balance, exchange rate, real exchange rate, etc. And we talk about international trade from Islamic perspective, as Prof. Norma mentioned in her talk before. Okay, right. So, okay, now 8th meeting, we talk about Islamic financial systems, how the profit and loss sharing as a substitute of interest and how it is worked in financial system, and the money and also money markets. This is talking a bit about monetary, because since the students doesn't have a monetary economy in their work, so we try to introduce before they take the monetary system or monetary economy in elective courses. And labor and production, this is a supply factors, yeah. So the role of labor, the unemployment and labor demand market, And I think, what Dr. Nahar mentions before, I think it's very interesting also to make a specific courses on labor in Islamic perspective. And also equilibrium in Islamic macroeconomics, where we have equilibrium in aggregate market and economic model, how we can visualize economic model without interest rates. Also, sorry. And the last 3 chapters talking about the fiscal policy, so going to policy, and then the theory of growth and development from Islamic perspective. So for fiscal policy, now the role of zakat and wakafs come into the picture, and sukuk is also one of the instruments of fiscal also. the theory of growth and development from Islamic perspective, then we talk about the thought, the thinking towards economic development, so more on Islamic economic development, and for example, the Ibn Khaldun theory on economic development. And the last meeting, we talk about inflation, economic stability, and also Islamic monetary policy, since we have several instruments on monetary policy already, so we can take some examples of that. Right. So this is our references that we use. That's why, because we use several chapters from each and every books. Unfortunately, we just know that Prof. Aslam also have a book for ISRA. I think this is one of I think we can also, maybe you can share as well to us, and we can use it also for our references. So now we took several books as our references, as you can see here. So several chapters taken from several books. Now, okay, so this is the way forward, I can say. What is changes in our conventional macroeconomics? So the first one, the material is on the classical approach. And a couple years ago, since the lecturers and also students are realized that financial condition, financial crisis is coming, and it is really related to the macroeconomics condition. So we also try to put some thought and focusing, more on financial crisis and fiscal and monetary policy. But what next? This is what we are trying to arrange next. Due to our pandemic situation now, we also think for macro, we need to also discuss about public policy, because since it matters, and then we feel that in terms of public, this is something that we are lacking out. So maybe its own way forward also for Islamic macroeconomics, since I think public policy is really related to Islamic value with zakat and wakaf involved. I think this is also our opportunity to introduce to the functions of our instruments. Several challenges, I think this is, everybody feels it, lack of reference, we don't have any standard reference, a lack of practical aspects. Sometimes people are economics is about assumption, Islamic macroeconomics, you need to assume in a different level. Sometimes you have to imagine how the world without interest rate. This is something very difficult. That's why when we go to move from critics to strategy, I think this is also highlighted how to see the practical aspect rather than criticizing the condition now. We need to really find the strategy how to strengthen our policy or our Islamic macroeconomics in our system. Maybe by one thing that I totally agree with Dr. Irfan here is saying that we need to increase the portions of our involvement in the macro as a whole. So in terms of policy, we have to interfere the policy. So in order for students also can imagine how the world with macroeconomics, Islamic macroeconomics policy. I think that's all. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Dr. Dita, for a very great presentation. Now we are moving to Dr. Kuro to share her experience in UIKA.
Okay, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirrabbilalamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. The Honorable, all the gurus from IAUM, Prof. Norma, Prof. Aslam, Dr. Irman, who is also one of my supervisors with Prof. Norma, Dr. Nizam, and also Dr. Nahar, and all participants here. It is an honor for me to share the experiences of teaching macroeconomics with Islamic perspective from my university, UIKA Bogor. And this is the outline of my presentation today, which will be divided into 6 parts, but I will just try to make it as brief as possible. Okay, first part is regarding our university first. Maybe not all of you know UIK Bogor. UIK Bogor is actually one of the oldest private Islamic university in Bogor. It was established in 1961, even older than IPB University, so it's almost 62 years old now. And then it was founded by all the national prominent figures. One of them is Kiai Haji Iskandar, which became the name of the main street in front of UIK Bogor. And now he is in the process of becoming the national hero. Now it's in the process at the province level. Yesterday we had a national seminar which was attended by Minister of Coordinator PMK, and then he said inshallah he will help us in order to make Kiai Haji Iskandar as one of the national hero in Indonesia. And then currently UIK Bogor has 7 faculties, including the first one is Faculty of Teacher Training and Education Sciences, Faculty of Law, Faculty of Economics and Business, Faculty of Islamic Studies, Faculty of Engineering Sciences, and then Faculty of Health Science, and the last one is postgraduate schools, with the total number of study programs or departments is 34. And then in terms of Islamic Economic Study Program or department, actually it is under 2 management. The first one is for the undergraduate level. It is managed by the Faculty of Islamic Studies. So it is managed separately with the postgraduate level, which is master and doctor. And Alhamdulillah, UIK has launched just last year, 2022, the Doctor of Islamic Economics. And it is managed by the postgraduate school. Because I am the home-based lecturer of the postgraduate school, so what I am going to share right now is the curriculum of Islamic Macroeconomics from the Master of Islamic Economics department. Actually, Master of Islamic Economics was established in 2007. And then we have 4 concentrations or elective courses. The first one is Islamic Banking, second one is Zakat, the third one is Islamic Cooperatives, and the last one is the Sharia Supervisory Board. The last one was established in 2020 due to the needs of market, because there are so many Islamic economics and financial institutions that needs the Sharia Supervisory Board members. Therefore, in order to catch up this opportunity, so we launched this concentration. And then regarding our courses, in general, this one is, you can see from the slide, that we have the total number of credit hours is 43 in 4 semesters, including matriculation, with 16 courses, a proposal seminar, and also comprehensive exam and a thesis. And if we take a look here, that Islamic Macroeconomics is offered in the 2nd semester. And there is no actually prerequisites of taking this subject, but the students are required to pass the matriculation subjects, and also they have to also pass the 1st semester subjects. And then the lecture method applied to all courses, including the Islamic Macroeconomics. The first one is we do the team teaching method. Currently in this semester, I teach this macroeconomics courses with Dr. Irfan. Dr. Irfan is one of the what we call as visiting lecturer or permanent lecturer. So although in IPB he doesn't teach this subject, but we asked him to help us to teach this course. Okay, and then the second approach is that the course lasts 12 sessions, but the total hours equals also to 14 sessions. So we follow the regulation from our Ministry of Education and Culture. And then the method on delivering lecture material is a combination of lecturers and also student involvement regarding presentations, project discussions, and etc. And then regarding the objective of our courses, actually in Indonesia we have what we call as learning outcomes or capaian pembelajaran. This one is actually we have to follow the attachment from the regulation from Permendikbud number 3 in 2020 that we have to cover regarding attitudes, knowledge, general skills, and also specific skills. But in general, the learning outcomes of our Islamic macroeconomics courses is to equip students with the theory and also concept of macroeconomics, which includes topic determination of national income, growth, aggregate supply and demand, various models of behavior macroeconomics as well as policy macroeconomics from the basic until intermediate level and linked with Islamic values. And then these are the specific learning outcomes which I may not explain, but you can also ask the committee to see the detail of the learning outcomes that we are expecting from this course. And then regarding the assessment, maybe it's quite different that we still follow that final examination become the domination of the assessment for the students which have 50%, and then the evaluation of individual and group assignments is 20%, and then we have also like quiz and other assignment which includes 20%, and also student participation and also attendance in class. We also calculated 10% as the contribution to the total assessment of the score. And then these are the final mark at the interval score. I think it's quite high, whereby if you want to get an A, you have to at least get the 90% of the total score of this course. And then we have come to the fourth part, which is the teaching content and approach. Actually, what we are struggling to build this curriculum, actually this curriculum was updated in 2020 by Dr. Henry Tanjung and the team, is to differentiate between undergraduate and also master level. Because there is no any standardized reference, right? So what we can do is that maybe the topics are similar with the undergraduate, but in terms of analysis and also the article references, it might be different with the undergraduate level. So the teaching contents of the Islamic macroeconomics in our programs, the first one is Islamic economics as a series of life systems. Before they talk about the macroeconomics itself, we have to go back again to this basic concept of Islamic economics. And then the second one is Islamic views on the economic concept in a country. So this one is we try to make into the level of a country. And the third one is regarding national income. The fourth one is economic growth. The fifth one is regarding the values versus development results, economic and social stability, individual and collective economic behavior. And so on and so forth. You can also see the topics in 14 sessions here. And then regarding the teaching approach, we acknowledge that the existence of neoclassical economics is still dominant. So, and then all the book reference are usually using this approach. So therefore, we just use the integration between the conventional economics, which is still neoclassical economics, and then we also imbued with the Islamic values and also ethics. And then the last one, the issues and challenge. I think it's also has been already discussed by other speakers. The first one that we faced is the lack of standardized references for developing the course outline, especially for the master level. So I think there is no any standard for the master level to develop the curriculum. Even in postgraduate, I think KNEKS already try to make some guideline for the departments of Islamic economics in Indonesia. What are the requirements, subjects that must be offered to the department? And then the second one, we also have a problem with diverse background, as mentioned by Dr. Nur Ihsan, because there are so many students who continue their master degree in us without any background of economics. Maybe this one can be a positive side. We have so many students with strong background of Sharia or Fiqh, but when it comes to teaching them regarding all the mathematics or calculation, it's quite challenging for us. Therefore, sometimes we have to think how we teach the master level content, but to the students who have no any background of the economics study program previously. So I think it's quite challenging for us, but inshallah we have to still work on that one. Hopefully there will be solutions for that. I think that's all for me. Thank you very much for the attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Quran, for the presentation and for all of the speakers for sharing their experiences of their respective institutions. So I would love to actually summarize all of them, but turns out that not only because of the time, but because also I cannot. The thing that we can probably agree upon is the challenges, right? But for the details of how every institution strategizing to actually address that challenge, one and another have differences. So this is why we conduct this very event of international workshop. So we still have around 10 minutes for 2 or 3 questions or discussion. We have 1 and 2 and another one, or from online probably in the Zoom if there is. Only 2 persons. Okay, 2 persons then. Yeah, please.
Okay, this question is, to whom it may concern. Simple. What is the borderline between undergraduate and second level macroeconomics? Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for the first question. The second question, the back. Yeah.
Ya, oke. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. For me, it is not a question but a discussion. It is very interesting when we talk about macroeconomic, Islamic macroeconomics, because it is about economics in a country. And I think that before we talk about the macroeconomics, maybe we have to know what is the basic character. Yeah. What is the basic character can build the economics. So I think that we must know the character from Rasulullah and Sahabah, because from their character make or build economics building, economics building, and it is that we can get from the sirah history of Rasulullah SAW and Sahaba. So I can conclude that in macroeconomics, Islamic macroeconomics must to include about sirah or history Rasulullah SAW and Sahaba. Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah, thank you very much. Welcome salam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh for the comments. I think, right? So, but probably if there are respond for that from these speakers, that would be great. So the first question is about the actually the borderline between the undergraduate macroeconomics and the postgraduate macroeconomics.
Basic and intermediate.
Yes, the basic and intermediate. So who's gonna answer first? Bye.
Actually, this question should be answered by the IIM side, because they are the ones who present the basic and intermediate. Yeah. The difference in the conventional macroeconomics lies on the mathematical issues. Yeah. The more advanced, the higher the level of the macroeconomics, the more complicated, the formula that is presented in that conventional macroeconomics. Because I have experience also in teaching until macroeconomics too, in the Department of Economics, before we separate, before we spin off from the Department of Economics. So what I was teaching is only mathematics. That's why it should be called macro mathematics. It's only math. But the theories, everything is the same. The way we think is also the same. No change. So the difference is on that aspect. That's to my understanding. But how about the Islamic economics? Well, I think because I also was asked by my younger sister to teach in the Haldun University in PhD program. So what I did, we conduct what we call as contemporary issues in Islamic economics, including contemporary issues in macro and micro. So for the level of PhD, we want them to think, about the phenomena, micro as well as macro. So we hope that by asking them to think philosophically, maybe we can produce something. We can think something, because philosophical dialogue among especially the PhD students, very important. While for the basic level, for the undergraduate student, we are just trying to compile the best source for each topic from various sources. This is, to be honest, this is what we are doing in IPB University. Yes, of course, we, the students should take the basic economics, the principles of economics. They should also take macroeconomic subject, conventional one. So when it comes to Islamic, we don't teach anymore about the conventional ones. But we try to utilize the available sources, and which we consider that it is basic to us. So basic, intermediate, that will be depending upon the judgment of each university. Because we don't have any standardized reference for that one. And even we have not come up with the agreement which one is the basic level, intermediate level. Everything is based on us. So that's why philosophical judgment, which is based from the pure heart, is very important. Yeah. Yeah, so this is my comment, and that's why we need to come up with something. And for your information, maybe, yeah, on the micro side, I'm not saying the macro, on the micro side, now the 4 campus, IPB, Pajajaran, also Erlangga and UIN, yeah, we have created the book which attempted to provide something new, which is based on 4 types of man. We promote the masalah-oriented economic man, and we also acknowledge the conventional rational economic man. We have aesthetic economic man, and we have apathetic economic man. Something new. This is our ijtihad. Yeah. So hopefully, yeah, but we are convinced that this is the correct ijtihad, because we have done some tahajjud, istikharah, etc., just to come up with these new ideas. Something which we try to observe from the Quran. Yeah. Something like that. So this is our attempt. Hopefully it can be translated into English, but after the publication. So inshallah the IAM will be first to be informed. Yeah. But the concept is already there. Now it's in the publication process. So this is just an example on how we try. And now the bigger challenge, of course, lies on the macroeconomics. Yeah, because it's not only about the intellectual exercise, but how to make it applicable. Yeah, and of course, this is another political area. Yeah, because when you want your ideas to be implemented as policy, then you have to enter the political arena. This is another another exercise. So that's why macroeconomics to me is very, very challenging. And the idea to separate the level is based on our own judgment. Yeah. We don't have, maybe the federation can take this initiative to determine that this is basic, this is intermediate, this is the advanced level. And of course, we need to follow the Sirah Rasulullah, etc. But of course, how to translate this into the reality, into the more applicable. Okay, this is a sign for me to stop. Yeah, but just give me 10 seconds. How to translate the Sirah Rasulullah? Yeah, the principles laid down in Hadith in the Quran into something which can be applicable and change the society. This is, a very big challenge to us. But inshallah, don't be pessimistic with regard to this condition. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the question. Maybe just to share our IIUM experience with regard to the first question addressed by Pak Irman. How do we basically distinguish between the principles macro and the intermediate macro, apart from what Dr. Irfan mentioned with regard to the math? Basically, in the principles of macro, first of all, in IIUM, this is a general course that is offered to all students, including those who will not specialize in economics. So basically, in the principles of macroeconomics, we simply do, for instance, the determination of equilibrium output and price with regard to the aggregate supply and aggregate demand. They are being done separately in isolation. We don't really highlight to the student the building block that start with the money preference or with regard to the labor, leisure kind of choice and stuff. However, at the intermediate level, we start to somehow incorporate the general equilibrium model, where whatever happened in the, first of all, we started with the very basic assumptions that basically determine the behavior in the labor market. basically the wage, real wage, the interaction between wage and price. So how would then this determine the equilibrium in the labor market? But students still have to remember that. Basically, I still remember, in our this is what I learned from my previous guru, Prof. Rosita, and I continue to do that. So we have to draw like 4 graphs. 4 graphs, we combine them on a single paper. So whatever happened in one graph will surely affect the other 3 graphs at the same time. So we analyze the labor market, the price and the wage, which will then affect the goods market, the product market, which will be then affect the investment saving schedule. So this would then, we would be able to derive the investment IS curve. And then we have to then analyze the money market. And this we have to basically inform the student the building blocks. So this is where the different school of thought will have to come in, because whether the household, whether we are sensitive to changes in interest rate, or do we engage in bonds, or do we rather hold money as cash and stuff. So the school of thought will have different view, and because of that, this would have different impact with regard to the slope of the demand for money. The equilibrium, the intersection between the vertical money supply curve determined by the central bank and the downward sloping money demand curve would then determine the equilibrium in the money market, which then we would be able to derive the LM curve. Now the third graph. So and then by finding the intersection point between IS and LM curve, we would then be able to then determine the ultimate equilibrium in the goods market. I mean the equilibrium price, to determine what will be the equilibrium price and the output level. So this would be something that we only introduce at the intermediate level, where we start to inform them, yes, at the intermediate level, you have to be aware of the general equilibrium approach. Whatever happened in one market would have a kind of a multiple effect in all the other markets. And of course, there will be many more graphs and more equations, unlike the principal level, like what Dr. Irfan mentioned. And at the PhD level, basically there will be less graph, but more longer and more complicated mathematics. Because I also used to teach macroeconomic theory at the PhD level, and we focus a lot on long-term macroeconomic model. So inshallah, Dr. Naha booked his place in micro, so I can also try to book if there's another macro at the postgrad level, inshallah. So that's all from me.
Okay, thank you very much. A quick answer for this. Herman, since we don't have actually a postgraduate program, so we haven't experienced this, but according to what we see in our conventional economics, as Dr. Irfan mentioned, yes, I can imagine that it will be more emphasizing on the mathematical things, and then because our student doesn't have to sit on mathematics too, unlike the economics students. So that's why maybe in terms of their capacity, they should be given those subjects first. So yeah, and also maybe more towards on articles and review and stuff, and what is the strategies or critical conditions of this our policy. And the second questions about the history of Sahaba. Yes, in principle, I absolutely agree that this is very important and a good approach to learn macroeconomics perspective. But it is based on preferences. In UE itself, we try to have another courses talking about history, which call History of Civilization and Islamic Economic Thought, which heavily discussed on that matters. And when they are sitting in a Islamic macroeconomics class, so we are expecting for them to know the information about that first. But of course, in a specific topic, we can also relate them to the what would happen in the previous era. So it's an analogy and experience learning. It is good, but we need to be contextual. So we prefer to discuss it on another subjects, and this subject will be focusing on the current conditions. Thank you so much.
Okay, I just want to add some more what we have been practicing so far regarding what's the difference between maybe undergraduate and postgraduate. The topic may be the same, but in terms of how we invite the students to have more critical thinking on each topic will be different. For instance, like if at the undergraduate level, we only asked, please explain regarding this certain topic. But at the master level, we asked their point of view regarding that each topic. And also, because I also teach Islamic macroeconomics for undergraduate level, what distinguish between undergraduate and master is also related to the article review. I think the level of the article itself that we selected for the students is also different. For instance, like in monetary sector topic, in master level, we also used from Dr. Professor Ahmad Kamil Maidinmira regarding the three components that distinguish between Islamic monetary system and also the conventional one regarding the full reserve banking system, and also the what we call the interest should be replaced by the profit rate, and also the last one is the fiat money system should be replaced by the fully backed money system, like that. I think that's what we can do in order to distinguish the two levels. Maybe that's all for me. You can also ask Dr. Nahar.
So yeah, Dr. Nahar, are you with us still? And do you have any thoughts on
I'm
our response?
I'm enjoying listening to the discussion. Slightly to give a different perspective. As far as macro cost is concerned, I think the stages moving from undergraduate to masters and then PhD is quite standardized, because all over the world the course has been taught in many universities. So it can be very mathematical and so on. I think just to bring my discussion into this topic, when we talk about labor economics, I think the jump from undergraduate to master is not easy to smooth that jump, because number one, at the undergraduate level is elective most of the time, and then not many students joining master program get that concept very clear. So when people join my class at master's level, sometimes you want to jump to that master's level for labor economics. For example, we talk about inequality. Yes, inequality at the undergraduate level, you can go to a very basic concept theory, even Lawrence curve we teach at the undergraduate level. But at the master's level, most of the time I will go to the original articles and then try to bring in the contemporary paper, much more latest, and we try to see the progress. So that's as far as labor economics. Definitely at the PhD level, people specialize and do their thesis in the area. So I think that's what I can add. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nahar, for your insight. So I think that ends our session today. I would like to extend my gratitude to Dr. Irwan, Dr. Tika, Dr. Kuro, and also, of course, Dr. Nahar for sharing with us the experiences from their own respective institutions. So thank you very much for listening and for your engagement with us. I hand over to the MC. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.